Maybe there's someone out there, maybe it's you. Maybe you want to take this on, maybe you feel like this is something that you could do. We want to make it possible for someone who loves the place and wants to live here and make their own chapter on this immensely special place.
When I'm back at home on my parents' farm, this is my daily commute. Okay, this is Scotland, so it's not always quite like this. But on this small and remote part of the group of islands called Orkney, life is taken at a different pace. Welcome back to Alary. It means East Skerry in Old Norse, home to people for thousands of years until about the 12th century, empty for hundreds of years until a lighthouse was built and keepers stayed here. And then came my dad. He saw something in this place no one else had for more than 500 years. He saw Alary as a potential lifelong home, a place that's wild, remote and often unforgiving, but is also beautiful, enriching, exciting. And I am the product of his vision in the mid-1970s, and then my mum's strength and passion to find a way to bring up 3 children here. I'm not sure they ever envisaged having a son driving a quad bike at the same time as flying a drone, but every generation brings its own ideas. My name is Hamish, and this is On to Other News, the fencing episode.
So I'm back on Alary, back after a year away, and back on a beautiful day as well. I mean, it's just stunning today. The sun is still warm. Here it is in the end of August 2024. I'm here until middle to late September, so about 3 weeks or so until I have to leave and go back to my other work in news down in Cardiff in Wales. And it's extremely special to be back. It does feel very different though without my dad here. It's currently just my mum and I, and it's lovely seeing mum, as it always is. And of course it was me, mum and dad last year, but not having dad here, it does feel very strange.
My dad lives with Parkinson's disease and a form of dementia. That means he now has to live in the nearest town, so he has access to the care he needs. It's hard to tell how much he misses this place. But he appears to be here in his head a lot, and that's actually the most comforting thing of all.
You know, he's been a presence on this island for the last 49 years. This would have been his 50th year here. He came here at first in 1974, not full time, but he first came here in 1974. So it's real bittersweet.
Throughout my life, Alary has been home to around 700 sheep, give or take, every year. These days the numbers are smaller because the pressures of looking after them and the buildings here have taken their toll on my parents. But to gather the type of sheep we have here, fencing is literally indispensable. The sheep we have are called rollies. They are Orkney's native breed of sheep and would once have been farmed all over these islands. But now, alongside the island of North Ronaldsay in the north of the county, Alary is home to the only other flock of these sheep living in their natural habitat anywhere in the world. And that's a genuine tragedy because these sheep are incredible. They eat seaweed because it's plentiful and rich with nutrients, and they require almost no human intervention to stay alive, even in this most harsh environment. But their wildness can also be a curse when you're trying to gather them for whatever reason. So today I'm working on making some repairs to the shire-wire fences that go all the way around the island.
This first week is really all about getting maintenance jobs done, and then we'll start sheep work that needs to be done in the weeks after that. So the plan today is to re-fence this field. The north, south and west side of this fence are all in need of repair. A couple of them have had to be patched last year. I didn't get a chance to actually fix them properly. So the first job is to go to the lighthouse where the wire is stored. I brought some wire out from town, bought from a local shop, and then we store it in our flat in the lighthouse, so that's a great place to keep things, or as a place to have lunch if we're working down at the sheep pens at this end of the island, obviously away from our house, which is at the other end. It's an amazing place. It sort of feels like it's been left in time, the lighthouse, and in many ways it has, since the lighthouse keepers used to live there.
One of the two lighthouse keepers' families would have lived in this flat. When Dad came to the island, this was still owned by the Northern Lighthouse Board, even though the light itself had been automated for decades and therefore no one lived here. In this room we store some of the fleeces from previous years of clipping the sheep, as we have to collect enough of different colours to satisfy the minimum weight requirements for some parts of the processing done on the UK mainland.
So I've collected the wire and I've taken some old fence posts from the house. We had lots of the shorter lengths of fence posts because on one field down near the pens we replaced them all with taller fence posts a year or so ago, or maybe more than that, a few years ago now. So we had lots of old but still good shorter fence posts, which I'm going to use to replace some of the ones along the south end of this field, because time has rotted most of them in the ground. Even though most of them were dipped in creosote when Dad put them in to protect them against rot, some of them have been in there long enough now that they've broken in the ground, or they are close to breaking, so I'm going to replace them. And then all the shire wire all needs to be replaced as well in the southwest and north ends. I'm going to start up here. All these posts are very new over the last few years, so that's easy. All I need to do is change the wire, and then the other ones will be slightly more complicated because I'll have to re-drive some posts. But yeah, a beautiful day to be working out in the fields. I mean, this is very different to my usual work life.
If you're enjoying watching this video, please do give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. That helps more people to see what life is like here.
I usually spend a fair bit of time in the house editing for my job in news. I spend a fair bit of time out and about in the countryside too, and in lots of different interesting places, learning about how people live and the challenges they face. So compared to most jobs, I have a wonderful opportunity to spend time outside and learning things. But this is just so special to be able to come back here. And it's more than just being able to come back here. There's a real reason for it. You know, my mum is currently on her own if I wasn't here. She's had lots of help this summer, but there is so much to do, and the help isn't always skilled in the sense of knowing how to do the farm work. It is also just a big breath for me to come back here, a chance to reset a little bit and realign with myself, but also to work out what I want to do when I go back. So I've got 3 weeks here in total. We've got a lot of sheep work to do in the coming weeks, but this first week I'm here, I need to get lots of maintenance jobs done. And then we can start with the sheep jobs. So yeah, plenty to be getting on with. Yeah, so the first part, as you can see, is to take all the staples out of the old fence. It depends, I guess, on whether or not the field is in use. If you have sheep in there and you can't allow them to leave, then you have to do it slightly differently. But in this case, because there's no issue with the sheep passing into that field for the next day or so while I'm doing this, I can allow this fence to come down, to roll it back up again, and then we can start to put out the new fence. But this is quite a satisfying process, I always find, to take away the old rusty wire, to roll it up and get rid of that, and then you can put out the brand clean, shiny galvanized wire, which, because of the environment here, doesn't stay shiny and galvanized for very long. As you can see, the fence here is rusting, and it rusts along the line where the sheep rub. Sheep love to rub themselves on anything really, fence posts, fence, anything they can find, and what it does is it wears away the galvanizing and it passes on the grease, which somehow must react with it in some way, and it does mean that over time it becomes rusty with the very, very salty air that is such a characteristic of Alary and this part of the world. There is, you know, many months of the year where it is wall-to-wall rain and wind, and it is pretty difficult for anything to survive, anything metal to survive in this environment. So yeah, it's quite a lot of work, miles and miles of fencing, and when I get a chance, when we've got a space in between the sheep work calendar, I really try and do a number on a couple of fences on a sort of rolling programme of maintenance so that we get it done. And today is my chance, and the weather is brilliant. I'm just trying to get a little bit more done, and then I can head home for lunch. Now this is a tiring bit. It's quite coarse on the hands as well, so that's why I always wear gloves, because the ends of these wires are quite sharp, or can be quite sharp. But this is sort of a necessary evil. I think there are other ways of doing fencing that other farmers would use. The gripples, which is the method that we do for straining these days, I think you can just put them on the ends here and hold it together with the gripples. So if that's what you're commenting, saying we want to do that, well, fair enough. But this is pretty close to exactly how my dad taught me to do it years ago. Since then, we stopped using a T-bar, which was the traditional method of straining it at the end of this whole process. And now we use gripples, which are the modern method, and they are brilliant. But all the kind of preparatory work, and this is pretty much exactly how my dad taught me. 2 panes of crossover when you're connecting an end of one roll to the end of another. And then at the ends, short posts, which then provide that sort of stable platform for straining from.
I haven't made a video on YouTube for a while, and that's partly because my partner Faye and I are trying to renovate our first home. Even though it's tiring and tricky combining that with our jobs in the city of Cardiff in Wales, I honestly love having something practical to do with my hands, because when I'm not on Alary, I feel like a part of my brain is dormant.
It's quite cathartic, this job though, because you're taking down something that's old and rusty, that's done its time. This has been here for maybe 7 or 8 years, maybe more. This particular bit of shire, probably put up by me and my dad when we changed these posts. I vaguely remember doing this particular stretch with him. Now we put up a new stretch, which, it's sad to think that may outlive our time here, or probably almost certainly will, if it lasts another 7 or 8 years. So hopefully a new family, new couple maybe, if they took on this place, maybe they would get the benefit from this particular bit of fencing that I'm doing. You never know. In the circumstances, Mum is trying to keep going with it as best she can. We're trying to wind it down. We're trying to make it more manageable, and ultimately we're trying to find, hopefully, someone to take it on. What we'd love is another family, another couple who wants to come here and wants to carry it on in some way. They don't have to carry it on the way we've done it. Someone else who wants to take it in a different direction, but we do really want the sheep flock here to exist, continue to exist in some form, in some size, big or small, for a bit of time, because it's Mum and Dad's life's work. So the thought of them having to be culled or having to be taken off the island just feels extremely sad. So we're really hopeful that that may happen. That's my big hope. And then of course it would mean that I would be able to come back and still help that person, that couple, that family, to get to know the island, to get to know the sheep flock and the jobs that are required here. We all still want to help. My mum still wants to come out to help shear even when she's not living here. But we just have to try and work out that next solution, which is very difficult. But hopefully, because of YouTube and people following this around the world, hopefully, maybe there's someone out there, maybe it's you. Maybe you want to take this on, maybe you feel like this is something that you could do. So we're nearly there with this. This is the last connection. The key my dad always used to talk about, and he's absolutely spot on, is making sure everything is the same as best you can. And everything's connected in the same place. Everything's in all the bits it should be. so that when you start to put tension on it, it will pull evenly on itself. So we're just about there now with that, I would say. So every stage with this tension process now, you have to keep an eye on it and try and make sure that it's neat and tidy and working as expected. So we'll go up the other end now, and we'll start tightening the other end. Be really careful of your eyes, keeping an eye on everything all the time, not taking any risks that you don't have to. As you can see, the fence is starting to tighten. You can start to hear the sound of it cranking up. So when it becomes too difficult like that, you can see down the line that it's really starting to come together now. But it's because you're pulling on all the weight of the fence that means it gets to a point where you think, oh, I can't go any more than that. So then what you got to do is you've got to support it. It does all feel quite poignant. The end of something, you know, it's hard not to feel melancholic about the end of the farm for us, if that's what happens. It's sad to think of my dad not being here anymore, and it's sad for me the thought that, you know, my mum's ready to move on as well, even though I totally respect and understand why she feels like that. So coming here this year does feel a bit different to other years for that reason. It feels a little bit end of days, but it's still beautiful, and for that we are lucky, very, very lucky.
We're almost finished erecting this new fence. As you can tell, it's quite a long process with several important steps, but with a few more final cranks with a strainer, I can now fully pin the fence with staples. Today has mostly been made easier by the weather, but the breeze has now started to get up, so when I was trying to set up this shot, the wind had other ideas. Perhaps it's trying to tell me something. Anyway, it's certainly been a day of multitasking. Do we think anyone's ever flown a drone in between stapling a shire fence before? First time for everything though, I guess. And this is the perfect place to try new things. A farm and a home like no other. None of us want to say goodbye, but with Dad having to be on another island and Mum not getting younger, we're all trying to face the new reality.
We want to make it possible for someone who loves the place and wants to live here and make their own chapter on this immensely special place, which has been home at different times to human life for thousands of years. There are amazing archaeological remains here of people who lived here 3,000 and 4,000 years ago. There were big gaps, obviously, but we've loved it. Dad lived here for 49 years, Mum's getting on for 45 years here. We want to pass it on to someone else. So we want to say, yeah, someone else's turn now, because we can't do it anymore. My mum can't keep going, and all of us three boys have decided that we don't want to take it on. We have relationship commitments, we have friendships that we want to maintain. We want to keep going with them. So yeah, it's someone else's turn now. And so that's our big task, is to try and find that person.
Thanks for watching this episode. I'll see you on the next one. Cheerio.